Why do you think Taiwan's art market seems to have fallen behind?
Until the financial crisis, it was affected a little bit.
You are in a certain environment, which is Taiwan, and that's very different from China.
Taiwanese artists try to reflect on their cultural identity from very diverse background.
And Hong Kong being China now, not anymore Hong Kong. That's kind of confused the art market.
Hello and welcome to Connected. I'm Divya Gopalan. Now, until the late 1990s, Taiwan had a bigger share of the global arts market than China, and its own market was roughly the same size as Hong Kong's. But over the following 2 decades, Taiwan's vibrant art scene faded from the global canvas. Now, if you look at this pie chart on your screen, you won't find Taiwan on the list of biggest players in the global art market in 2021. While China holds the second largest piece of the pie with 20%, Taiwan falls into the 8% that represents the rest of the world. Now, to understand what's happening and explore whether Taiwan is undergoing an art revival, we're now joined by Wei Hsiu Tung, Professor of Anthropology of Art at the National University of Tainan. She's currently in Bordeaux and in France, and in the Netherlands, we're joined by Sasha Dees, an independent writer, producer, and curator. Thank you very much, both of you, for being on the show. It's great to have you on the program. Let me start with you, Wei Hsiu. Why do you think Taiwan's art market seems to have fallen behind? What do you think has changed over the past few decades?
Oh, I think you can say that there is a revival of Taiwanese art market in the 90s, and a lot of it was a golden age of galleries, and so you can see the market is very hot. And at the moment, at that time, because of the economics also doing very well in Taiwan and in Asia in general, in East Asia, until there is a financial crisis. I think it must be the mid-90s, and since then it was affected a little bit, but then I think the art market is still going on because of the connection between Taiwan and China at that time. And a lot of Taiwanese artists were able to sell their artwork in China or Hong Kong, and they even have a very big studio in China. But I think in the past decade, I think this was until perhaps just 10 years ago, I think this art market a little bit declined at the moment, and this is what I observe for the art market in Taiwan in general.
So, Sasha, you come from a country of great artists like Rembrandt, Van Gogh, Vermeer, and you've also that's just setting the scene there where you are, and you've also spent some time in Taiwan, I understand. Can you tell us what your take on Taiwan's art scene is?
Well, to me, I think to the point, I didn't know that much about Taiwan in general, and also not so much about the art scene in Taiwan. So I didn't really know what to expect, but I was really, what I found is it's very similar actually to the Netherlands. I mean, the size is similar, so is actually the art community. I think economically the countries are pretty similar, so also art funding, etc., is similar. So that was kind of surprising in a sense. But I also thought, I mean, Europe is not very open to show other works from outside of Europe and America, and that's actually a new thing. So I guess it's a new chance for Taiwan. There might be a new market for the countries outside of Europe. We, like recently we started a whole decolonial discourse, and all the museums are really almost pressured by the zeitgeist to actually open up their presentation spots and collections for work for other artists. And I think the work that I saw would definitely qualify for that.
Yes. So, Sasha, are you saying that in the commercial gallery or art market is less chance to see Taiwanese artists' work? or art from outside Europe in general?
Yeah, and until recently, I think even if you would go to Art Basel, like in Basel, not in Miami, I think European collectors have not been, exceptions, of course, proven the rule, but the buying of art by museums and also by representing through galleries, it's not been that open, but it is changing. So rapidly, rather, after a very long standstill, I would say. So this is a good time to try to actually get connected to spaces in Europe. I think you see that in the different art markets also.
And Wei Hsiu, I know that is something very much you're interested in, and how Taiwan can connect to the rest of the world. But before I go to that, can I ask you your description of Taiwan's current art scene?
Well, I can say that currently it's very diverse in a way. Taiwanese artists try to reflect on their cultural identity from very diverse background, and also you can see art at the moment try to show how much they can relate to the local knowledge or community in a way. So it's and also artists use various different media, and not just in the commercial gallery. You can see most of artists sell their work or present their work like a drawing or sculpture. But at the moment, artists, they try to do also the experiment, so it's very open.
Right. I want to put this statistic to you. According to a report published by Taiwan's Ministry of Culture in 2019, art sales in Taiwan rose to $225.4 million US. But 97% of that was comprising of domestic or local sales. So my question to you, Wei Hsiu, is how much more should Taiwan be engaging in the international art market, like art fairs, and why isn't it doing more if we just look purely at these numbers?
If it's possible to sell Taiwanese artists' work overseas, I think in a way it would help to increase the visibility of Taiwanese art and culture, and also, of course, it would benefit to the income of artists. But we need to have good agents or stakeholder to help to promote Taiwanese artists' work.
Okay, Sasha, so obviously Taiwan's art sales are doing quite well within the country, but how important is it for a nation to be exporting its art or kind of placing its art on an international platform, especially if you're a small nation? And why would that be important?
I think it's both important. You want to be supported by your local collectors, but I think it's important to be in international collections and museums because it sort of raises your visibility. I mean, if you talk about an art market, then of course you talk about economics. So it also raises your value as an artist if you are collected by international museums and if you are represented by international galleries. I can imagine that it dropped because Hong Kong is such a big market, but then of course the political situation between Taiwan and China, and Hong Kong being China now, not anymore Hong Kong, that's kind of confused the art market. So I also think, like once that is more stabilized maybe and figured out, and also galleries might realize like, okay, Hong Kong being China now, like where will they go in the Asian market? I think they might move. I didn't do real research behind that, but that is a political change. So I might imagine that large galleries like House of World or Pace, or they might move to maybe Korea. So Taiwanese artists could maybe connect with Korea, or look into ways to be connected by the other countries. Regional connections might be good anyway. I think Taiwan is still being looked upon. If you look into the Netherlands in Documenta, I mean, Taiwan was part of that. So they are part of like the larger mega stations, I would say. Put a lot of money into international exchange, international presentation of your artists. That would be a good thing, I think, to put money from the ministry. Like, look at Korea, that's what Korea is doing, and that's definitely working.
Right, and I feel one of the issues here is when you look at more the traditional art venues, the traditional exhibitions, apart from that of modern China. Here's the take from Wang Zhizi, chairperson of the Taipei Chinese Painting Art Research Association.
其实没有变台湾的，中国还是中国，不是现代的中国。这个艺术是属于历代的，我们是历代的精华，我们这样慢慢传承下来。啊，传承下来，当然有一段时间，它那边是断层。那边这个不需要讲哈，红卫兵那个时代，所有的老艺术家全部都阿 K 的很高深的艺术家全部都没有了，没有这种传承。
Now, Wei Hsiu, do you think Taiwan is managing to create its own identity away from the more traditional types of Chinese art that has been prevalent here in the past?
I would say this is many artists is trying to do, because all the art we see are from their own contemporary. So Taiwanese culture and Chinese culture, if we look at it now, at the first 2 decades of 21st century, Taiwanese artists also live in their own contemporary. So there will be different ways of thinking or lifestyle compared with China. A part of Taiwanese art, also you have this cultural tie there, but the younger generation artists, they try to reflect on their own the cultural identity or lifestyle or their experience to make their art. So things will be different from the tradition, obviously. In a way, if you compare contemporary Chinese art and Taiwanese contemporary art, the younger generation artists, they also try to create their work from within their own experience and also from the society they are facing. So it's very different in a way.
Okay, so Sasha, in that case, then we're seeing Taiwan artists try to emerge from perhaps kind of the older generation artists, the more traditional kind of restrictions that were once there. Can you tell us about the danger in particular of, like you were saying, that these big countries dominating the art scene? What does that do to a nation, to the smaller countries that often where artists feel perhaps in a way in order to be able to travel, they have to emulate or copy or try to be like the artists that are making it on the international scene?
I think the problem with framing art in geographically is problematic, because what is Taiwanese compared to Chinese art, I don't think is the right discussion, because that would be like what makes Dutch art different from art from Belgium or from Germany, and we don't do that in that way either. So I think art really needs to be discussed like you are in a certain environment, which is Taiwan, and that's very different from China. So the art actually reflects everything that is going on in Taiwan, and also all the things that you experience, but also the techniques that are available to you. And to say that it's Chinese just because you use ink or you use a technique as calligraphy is a little bit short-sighted if you look at 2023, because that is being used in other spaces as well. I mean, ink was also at the same time invented in Egypt, and that doesn't make Egypt Chinese or China Egyptian.
And going from Taiwan is Taiwan, I want to take this to Wei Hsiu about Taiwan's indigenous art culture, which I feel like for so long has basically not been explored. Can you tell us about whether that is starting to gain momentum, or indigenous art is starting to become promoted into the wider art scene?
Yes, because in the past 2 decades, you can see the revival of Aboriginal Taiwanese contemporary art. When I was doing my research, I have tried to look at how different communities reflect on cultural identity. So coming to our previous discussion on how much art can reflect on the environment and society or social cultural change, I had this book that Art for Social Change and Cultural Awakening that was published in 2013. In this book, I tried to look at how much artists they work with local community, and after 1987, the artists desire to connect with the public, so they don't show their work or make their work in the conventional museum or gallery space, and they don't make their work only in their studio. They go out to collaborate with different people. And when I was doing this research, I was thinking, where is the Aboriginal artist I wanted to see? I was thinking if it's possible to see the Aboriginal artists. They don't just make art like a conventional Aboriginal craft art, but they really try to show their concept and idea and make their artwork in a way that is different from the traditional stereotype of Aboriginal craft. And at that time, I started to think about that, and I did research on certain artists. But afterwards, I can see more and more Aboriginal artists. There is a kind of awakening of culture, identity, or whatever that link to the tradition of the tribe. And I think that is also part of Taiwanese cultural identity, and is very important. But you can see there are also connections of Taiwanese culture to the other part of the world, not just mainland China. Nowadays, if we turn our back to mainland China, we look at the sea. This is what I often think, that if we don't look at mainland China, we can see that Taiwan as an island actually in itself has a lot of cultural impact from the sea. And during the 17th century, since the 17th century, the maritime period, you have Dutch people, Portuguese, or many other. Well, in a way, they are innovator, but they brought a different cultural diversity to Taiwan. And if we see days back from this period, Aboriginal people, they are the first to arrive Taiwan, and they have a strong link with Southeast Asia. The Austronesian culture. So this part has very much to do with the sea culture. So this is what makes the Taiwanese art so diverse. And nowadays you can see the younger generation of Aboriginal artists. They kind of really started to think about their own voice and their own connection from the tradition. And this is what you don't see, I would say, in the 90s. So that is very important.
Right. And so this is where I want to bring Sasha in, because I know this is something that you particularly have researched, the whole idea of colonial powers and the impact on that on a nation's cultural identity and particularly creativity. And I understand that you did speak to artists in the Caribbean for your book about this very aspect. And can you just tell us what basically was the narrative you were getting as far as artists go and trying to break away from that colonial hangover?
So it's really sort of in the same vein, like going back to what traditionally was there and then maybe translating that into modernity. So there's a lot of links to what was there before colonial powers. And in a way, that is what was discussed, like there were the Australian people on the island before the Dutch colonized Taiwan, at the time Formosa, and other Europeans were in that region. And you see, that's all in the similar time as we colonized the Caribbean. But, like I think the mixture that is now sort of shows that. But it also shows that you are your own identity, because that also makes you very different from the former colonizers. The fact that there is this mixture of people, of cultures, of a different type of history, that, of course, forms like a nation and forms a people. And you see that in the Caribbean as well. And of course, there will always be influence from who colonized you. So in Taiwan, there will be influence from the Netherlands or Europe in general, from China, from Japan. But it's also part of Asia, like how all the different countries in the Caribbean are part of each other's region, but they also have their own identity. And it will constantly evolve. To me, it was really interesting to be in Taiwan and see all these indigenous techniques, for instance, and artists translating that to modernity, because that's what I've seen in the Caribbean. And so that's exciting to me. It's also, I'm coming back in November with an artist from Puerto Rico who works with indigenous techniques, but he's a very well-known contemporary artist. And so we're doing a program at the National University for the Arts. And I'm hoping that we can connect with artists that are doing the same in Taiwan.
Sorry to jump in, but we are slowly running out of time. But I want to bring you to this example of an international exchange. A recent exhibition in Taipei illustrates Taiwan art scene's international connections. And the first stop of the legendary street artist Banksy's latest round of exhibitions was at the Museum of Contemporary Art, with the famous half-shredded piece Love is in the Bin as its centerpiece. Here's a report by our TaiwanPlus reporter, Yujing Huang.
These people at Taipei's Museum of Contemporary Art booked more than a week in advance to see a single work of art by the street artist Banksy.
想说只是一个单纯就是一个艺术品，然后想要知道说，就是为什么它这么有名气？原本是抱着这个想法来的，这样，但实际见到之后就觉得，它整个在制作过程中，它其实是有一个蛮特殊的。赋予它的艺术的意义，这样。
因为 Banksy 他其实长期都蛮关注一些政治、一些社会议题。那我觉得台湾算是在政治议题上面都是一直有蛮多的想法的，所以或许未来也可以考虑跟 Banksy 可能做个合作。
Banksy is best known for his graffiti, but Love is in the Bin was originally a painting called Girl with Balloon. It made global headlines in 2018 when it was destroyed at an auction in London by a shredding device hidden in the frame. Ironically, that made the British artist's piece much more valuable. Love is in the Bin resold for $25 million, nearly 20 times the original price. In Taipei, the piece is on display in 360 degrees, so visitors can see Banksy's signature and where the shading device was placed.
我觉得大家在看到这件作品，同时会去欣赏Banksy 其他的作品，也更能够理解他对于这个社会关怀的以及这个所有的他维权上面的一个努力，这个是台湾一直在努力的方向。
I feel we barely scratched the surface of what we need to discuss, but unfortunately my director Katie is saying that we've run out of time, so we're going to have to leave it there, but there's still so much more to talk about. I hope to get you both on again on this very important topic. Wei Hsiu Tung, thank you so much for joining us all the way from Bordeaux in France. And Sasha Dees, just not too far away from Amsterdam in the Netherlands. Thank you so much for being part of this conversation. We hope the renaissance of Taiwan art keeps gaining recognition and the nation's creativity can make an impression on audiences not just here, but all over the world. To our viewers, thank you for watching, thank you for your company, goodbye and stay connected.